The banana is staring into your soul. That cushion back there, I didn't realize quite how prominent it would be. He's gonna stay there now. Hey Spuds, it's Jamie. Welcome back to another video, first video on the channel. I'm very glad to have you here. Welcome on in. And today we're talking about Elliot Page. Well, today we're specifically reacting to this video that somebody else has made on Elliot Page. And I just wanted to talk about it because I don't agree with it. I don't know who this person is. I'd never seen a video of theirs before this one. So I'm not commenting on them. I'm just commenting on the views and what they're saying about Elliot Page, and that's the angle we're taking. So I thought we could watch it together, have a little chat. If you don't know who Elliot Page is, wonderful trans man, came out very publicly as trans a couple years back or a few years back, and has obviously received a shit ton of hate and everything from transphobes and anti-trans people, just people who don't like trans people basically, and they're like, oh my god. So yeah, today we were watching a video that somebody else has made about Elliot Page, about a specific thing that happened, which is what alerted me to this, because I just saw some people being like, oh, Elliot Page this and everything, and I was like, what is this? Is this like a call out of Elliot Page? Has he done something wrong? Or is this just people who don't like trans people or don't understand trans things having a go? It definitely seems to be the latter, but let's watch the video. Yay!
Elliot Page was recently filmed sharing a message to his younger self in an effort to encourage young trans kids. Now today we're going to react to that message because I have some words, although they may not be the ones you're expecting. Let's talk about it.
I'm questioning the language of like to encourage young trans kids because I'm curious of what angle that's being said with. It could be said of like a giving words of encouragement to the trans youth out there to help uplift them, or it could be the kind of insidious type of anti-trans language of like encourage the children to transition. So let's see where this is going.
We're going to be talking about Elliot Page, who of course was formerly Ellen Page.
Already it's just that kind of sensationalistic thing of like, we have to say the trans person's dead name. There's some kind of like compulsion to say it from some cis people where there's like, whenever I do an interview, I'm asked for it. Whenever you see things written, if a birth name or a dead name is public or known, it's always like Blur, formerly Blur. And I don't know why there's that necessity. Elliot is Elliot Page, and we don't need to be like formerly Blur. It's not the most respectful language about trans people.
Now, Ellen Page was an American actress, famous for Juno, Inception, came out as a lesbian in 2014, and then as trans, I believe, in 2020. Now, Ellen Page has been living as Elliot Page ever since.
Why is she referring to Elliot Page using his dead name as if that's still his name? Like, that language is very muddled. Okay.
And has gone through what seems to be a full-blown medical transition, or at least she is in the throes of that currently.
Bit of misgendering there, not even historical referencing, which is also not okay to use the wrong pronouns to somebody unless they've specifically said it's okay, but that was like just blatant current misgendering.
Elliot Page quickly became the new poster child for the trans movement, as it was quite an interesting story, of course.
I wasn't sure when first watching this what direction this video was going in, and there's just some like real red flags of language. So like clearly dead naming, using the wrong pronouns in current tense as well, and then like poster boy for the trans movement. There's a lot of language that's used at the minute to try and make the trans community sound big and scary and like they're trying to take over, and it's like the trans movement rather than just like the trans community or like the trans rights movement. There's just something not sitting right about the language used in this video.
Ellen Page, then Ellen Page being gay, then Ellen Page actually being Elliot Page. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for if you're a trans activist?
I mean, the representation is lovely, but Elliot's personal journey is his journey. There's nothing to ask for from it.
Elliot was thrust to the forefront of the trans movement to defend gender transition and has been doing so ever since. And now we have this clip that was posted by the ACLU of Elliot Page talking to his/her younger self.
My message to my younger self would just be like, you know who you are, you know, and please embrace that. I feel for me, it was, I understood my truth. I felt it very strongly, and it was all of these external forces and noises that pushed and pulled and made me sort of lose track of who I was. And so I guess to my younger self, I'd say, you know, that discomfort and that pain you're feeling, that is not yours, that is theirs. And to just keep going on the journey of embracing who you truly are, and that's what's going to lead you to happiness.
Oh, there's a lot in here, and I gotta say, I could not see a video that feels more devoid of happiness, in my personal opinion. I mean, look at the body language.
More devoid of happiness, in my personal opinion. There were multiple times when Elliot smiled in that video, but also he's literally being asked to recall something that's probably quite painful. As a trans person, I am a trans person, I know that if somebody put a microphone to me and was like, hey, what's a message you would give to your younger self? It's not going to be all happy and smiles, because it's a difficult journey for many, many trans people of self-discovery, of being told that they can't be their true selves, of their identity being pushed back by themselves because they feel like that's what they have to do, and by other people in society forcing them to push that back down. It's not like a joyful memory to talk about, oh, I'm sending a message to my younger self. I know how much society is telling you what you're feeling is wrong. I know how difficult this is for you. You're not going to be like,
I know how hard it was back then.
like, it's not the vibe of the question. The answer didn't warrant him being jumping for joy and all smiles, but when there were moments of him talking about truth, he was smiling, like devoid of happiness. I don't think we watched the same video.
I mean, look at the body language, look at the facial expressions, look at what happens.
The facial expression of a smile, that happened multiple times. Like, you can pick and choose if you freeze frame a video to depict whatever you want, and you can twist something. This is somebody who's been outside in the cold and said, what's a message to your younger self? As a trans person, that's not going to be an extremely joyful thing to say. If you watch like RuPaul's Drag Race, they often end it with the finalists giving a message to their younger selves. Do you know how many of the times they cry doing that message to their younger self? I think it's not a concept that people who are not LGBT plus, and in this instance who are not trans, you can't understand what it's like to speak to your younger self who was so deeply oppressed and so scared of who they were. Why are you dictating how he should be behaving in that situation? He's not talking about being joyful and the happy moments. He's talking about not being able to figure out who he was or live as his true self for so many years. That's difficult.
Happens at the end of that video when Elliot is supposedly talking about being on a journey and embracing themselves and feeling happiness. There's not an ounce of happiness to be found in that video, and it's truly devastating to watch. Not only because this is an ill-informed...
I could say it's truly devastating to watch, but from the perspective of like, I've just watched a trans person open up about something that's probably a painful memory, about finding childhood very difficult as a trans kid who couldn't be openly trans, knowing what that feels like, knowing that I didn't have the language, knowing that I didn't have the ability to come out in childhood, knowing that society told me for so many years that who I was and the way I was wrong. I probably would have delivered it quite similarly and been like, this is more of a somber toned answer.
An ill-informed message to trans youth or to gender dysphoric youth who are dealing with hatred of themselves, self-loathing, and incongruence between the mind and body. But it's difficult because you can see as Elliot or Ellen is speaking that there is so much pain that this person has endured and so much pain yet to come on this journey towards embracing oneself, which is actually a journey running away from the self.
Oh, this is somebody who full blown does not seem to accept the trans experience or trans people. Oh, there's too much there that's wrong. Okay, let's take a minute. One, is this person a qualified therapist who specializes in gender, who personally knows Elliot? Because if you are not those three things, the reach that is being taken in this video with these comments of like devoid of happiness, so much pain, you have no idea. You do not know that. There could be one day where I'm asked an interview question and I could seem a little bit down, a little bit serious. And the next day I could be perfectly happy because guess what? I have emotional ups and downs just like everybody else does in life for things that are completely separate to me being trans. Also, when I'm talking about my trans experience, if I'm talking about something that is deeply personal to me and not the happiest of memories, I'm not going to seem joyful in that moment. And going back to the comment she said about like it being a message to trans youth, it's something for other trans people to see and take from it what they need. But Elliot was asked to speak to his younger self and he spoke to himself. It was a personal message that is shared, and if other people can relate to it, then they can relate to it. But Elliot wasn't saying, and this is for all trans youth. He was saying, for me, this is how I felt. This is what I want to say to my younger self. It's being twisted and generalized and being like,
oh, he seems so sad, is devoid of happiness, this person is in pain, and sending a message out to all trans people and telling them this thing.
And it's like, no, he's giving a message to himself that's being shared, and I don't really understand how you can comment on whether he is in pain or not if you don't know him personally. Maybe he is, but how do you know why that might be? How do you know that that is actually the case? How do you know he's just not freezing and answering a question in a public space?
If I replayed that video for you now, but I muted it, do you think you'd be able to guess that that is a message of joy, happiness, and encouragement?
Sorry? So you show the very end bit of like somebody saying to the younger self, you're in pain right now, but I know what's gonna make that better. It's a serious message to his younger self, very personal message. Where's this concept come from that it had to be this joyful message that was full of like, I don't know, smiles and lollipops?
And if the answer is no, follow that feeling.
But you showed the last 5 seconds, cutting out every single smile in that video. So it's not really a very accurate representation, is it?
And follow the story of Ellen Page, who has now become Elliot Page, in what is a devastating development for this individual.
How do you know? Does she know anything about the trans experience? Anything about the facts of gender affirming care and how it greatly improves people's well-beings and it reduces anxiety and depression? It is the medically approved and approved by all these different medical boards that it is the appropriate healthcare for trans people. What authority is she speaking on? I'm sat here as a trans man and I can share my personal experience and where I'd be coming from with these certain messages, but I have no authority to sit here and tell you exactly how Elliot Page is feeling. Whose business is it? He's sharing messages he wants to share. He's living his life. How do you know how he's feeling? Only he knows how he's feeling. You can't tell somebody else how they're feeling based off of a 30-second clip of him in the cold being interviewed about something quite serious. But yeah, a devastating development for this individual, doing the thing that 99% of people don't regret, and something that has been shown time and time again to improve the mental well-being of people who transition. But yes, how devastating for Elliot that he can live as himself now.
There is a lot of hatred, pushback, criticism for Elliot Page that is shared all over the internet, and it's totally understandable as somebody who is a grown woman encouraging young people to gender transition.
What I don't get is that the hatred isn't totally understandable. The hatred is just coming from bigotry and transphobia. That is it. Elliot Page is a grown man who is sharing his journey because he happens to be a famous trans person and has been pushed onto this stage. It's this misconception that trans people just existing, there being trans representation, there being trans people speaking about their journeys and their feelings, there being visible trans people in society, suddenly those things don't translate into just a trans person living their lives. Oh, no. A trans person living their lives and speaking about their experiences publicly.
That's actually insidious encouragement of children to do the same thing.
No, those two things do not equate. You don't say that about any other group of person. When we have celebrities who fall into other marginalized categories, maybe you would have in the past when there was more rampant homophobia that was more acceptable in the way transphobia is acceptable nowadays. There is still a lot of homophobia. That's not what I'm saying. Trans people are the target right now. Living your life as a trans person is not doing any kind of bad thing of like encouraging kids to transition. Trans people are the last people who would want to try and force somebody else to live as a gender that they are not, or to live as somebody that they are not, because we know what it feels like. We're not about to force other people to experience that. I promise you. My God. Hey, what's a message to your younger self, Elliot? You specifically to your younger self.
Oh my God, look, him talking about his own experience. He's encouraging the children.
No.
There's a lot of harm in that message, and criticism is most definitely deserved. But when I look into the story of Ellen Page, now Elliot Page, there is
the disdain over like, it's just rude. It is just rude to speak with such authority on something that you clearly don't understand. And I'm saying this like the royal you generally, whoever does this. I'm here to talk about what she is saying and take those views and talk about why they are not okay. You do not know Elliot personally. You clearly don't know enough about the trans community to be making these kind of broad sweeping statements about intentions, feelings, whether something is right or wrong, whether something is a devastating development in somebody else's life. Why make this video? I'm a little confused.
clearly understandable case as to why Elliot is now Elliot. This is out of an article from USA Today. It reads, Elliot Page suffered bullying and abuse both as a child and an adult. Now, Page states that this bullying that she suffered as a kid was because of her queerness.
The misgendering is so uncomfortable. And is she trying to go on the angle of like Elliot's trans because of the bullying?
Quote, he was tormented in school, called homophobic slurs, and shoved in the boys' bathroom. Further down in the article, it reads, one of the most shocking incidents occurred in 2014, just after Page came out as gay. At a party, an acquaintance Page, described as one of the most famous actors in the world, showed up inebriated and began insulting him for coming out. That doesn't exist. You aren't gay. You are just afraid of men, the actor said, threatening to have sex with Page to make him realize he wasn't gay, describing in lurid detail what he was going to do to his body. Page locked himself in the bathroom to get away. This article also details that when Ellen Page was struggling with her sexuality and wanting to come out as gay, she was encouraged by Hollywood executives to stay in the closet because she was working in roles like Juno, which of course had a bend towards femininity and straightness, heterosexuality. So she was dealing with this plus an onslaught of just constant sexualization and objectification. What do you expect?
Wait, is she trying to say that the homophobic abuse that Elliot had to deal with before he transitioned is why he transitioned? Do you think it's any easier to be a trans person in society? To be a famous trans person? Ah, yes. Let me get away from that homophobia and run straight into transphobia, but still with the misogyny, because so many people are so transphobic, they still are misogynistic towards trans men because they view them as women. That is actually ludicrous. That is such a joke of like, let me hear about this person's bad experience of bigotry and abuse. And instead of having any kind of like, wow, that was shit, he didn't deserve to go through that. Instead, it's like
That's why he transed. That's why he is trans now.
Because of the homophobia. Yes, because we all know that transphobia doesn't exist. And it's so easy to be a trans person. This video that she's making proves it, yeah. Nobody's ever against trans people.
Out of Vox, that has a quote from Ellen Page. It says, when I was 16, a director took me to dinner, a professional obligation and a very common one. He fondled my leg under the table and said, quote, you have to make the move. I can't, end quote. I did not make the move, and I was fortunate to get away from that situation. It was a painful realization. My safety was not guaranteed at work. An adult authority figure for whom I worked intended to exploit me physically. I was sexually assaulted by a grip months later. I was asked by a director to sleep with a man in his late 20s and to tell them about it. I did not. This is just what happened during my 16th year, a teenager in the entertainment industry. End quote. Ellen Page also said this in her 2014 coming out speech for the Human Rights Campaign. And reminder, this is her coming out as gay, not trans.
It's weird because here I am, an actress, representing, at least in some sense, an industry that places crushing standards on all of us. And not just young people, everyone. Standards of beauty, of a good life, of success. Standards that I hate to admit have affected me. You have ideas planted in your head, thoughts you never had before, that tell you how you have to act, how you have to dress, and who you have to be. And I have been trying to push back, to be authentic, and to follow my heart, but it can be hard. But that's why I'm here, in this room. All of you, all of us, can do so much more together than any one person can do alone.
So I'll be the one to say it. For me, this makes perfect sense as to why Ellen Page ended up being Elliot Page.
Well, because he's trans, and he was talking about an industry that pushes back who you are and tries to fit you into a mold and penalizes you if you don't fit into that mold, whether that is a mold of lack of femininity, lack of masculinity, the wrong sexual orientation, the wrong gender identity. Like, you were literally sat there making a video, misgendering a trans person, acting as if you know all about the transition process and how bad it is for people to do, spreading false information about trans people, encouraging children to transition, acting as if you know exactly how Elliot Page is feeling in specific moments and how his life choices are going to play out in the future. All of those things, this type of content that she's making, all adds to the difficulty that trans people face. It all adds to the discrimination that trans people face. It all spreads misinformation around the trans community and the transitioning process. And yet she's sat there going,
oh, this is why Elliot transitioned. It's because it was going to be easier to get away from these Hollywood execs and escape that.
Yes, so much easier.
So much easier to just be trans.
Do people actually believe that? Can people actually sit there and make videos that contain transphobia and transphobic rhetoric and then think that it's easy to be trans and that people transition to escape some hardship?
You're talking about a young woman who, from a very young age, displayed maybe masculinized traits, brought those masculinized traits to school, was bullied for it, was called homophobic slurs, was thrown in the boys' bathroom. Clearly, there's some messaging underlying these different forms of bullying. You're a girl who acts like a boy, and therefore you deserve to be bullied. For a young child, the only message that they're going to be able to deduce from those actions is that a girl should not be acting like a boy, and something is wrong with her. From there, you grow into a woman's body, and you are thrust into Hollywood, where you are now being sexualized and objectified for the femininity, the very same femininity that you couldn't show as a young person in school and were bullied for not showing. So when you are simply just being a kid, you are brought down by the other kids around you for, I don't know, existing in the way you exist. You grow into not even a woman's body, mind you, a minor woman's body, and you are consistently sexualized while also being told to lean into that femininity and out of your queerness or lesbianism. So not only do you feel a sense of a lack of ownership when it comes to who you actually are and being able to express yourself, but this female body that you were given, you were born into, is constantly being exploited by those around you. And those around you are adults and executives, people of power, people who exist within a system, and a system that you are working in as well.
You cannot take two concepts and go, I have found a causation. People are not made to be trans based on their life experiences. People are born trans. The causational effect here is not,
Elliot became trans because he was bullied and then mistreated and sexualized from his childhood into his teenage years.
Elliot is a trans man. That is who he is. It's also very common for trans people to be gender non-conforming for their assigned sex in childhood and to be bullied for that. And yes, being gender non-conforming, whether you are trans or whether you are cis, is often punished by peers, by society, by people in your workplace and various other situations. But being bullied for being gender non-conforming does not make people trans. It's a really damaging false causation to pull to say this person is trans because they were bullied as a child and then exploited as a teenager. There should be compassion for those things and those experiences. Elliot is trans separate to those situations, and some of that treatment is likely to have happened because he is trans, because of the way he just naturally is, because of his gender that he was not able to live as or express properly. That is an experience a lot of trans people have that actually doesn't push them into being trans. It makes them try and repress it for as long as possible and just makes them more and more miserable. Like, if there was any causation, it would be he were mistreated because of his expression and identity. To make the conclusion of the causation the other way just shows a profound lack of knowledge into trans people, the trans experience, and the science and the facts around being trans.
Identity-based confusion. And when you feel like you're finally grasping at a piece of yourself by taking control of your sexuality, you come out for the Human Rights Campaign and you are met with thunderous applause from everybody in the room.
Thunderous applause from everybody in the room, but huge backlash elsewhere. Oftentimes when celebrities come out as something that is not cis and straight, they, yes, among friends and among specific groups and in specific environments, they get a huge amount of support, which is so important to receive to make up for the sheer lack of support elsewhere and the sheer judgment from other people and the sheer amount of homophobia and transphobia that LGBT plus people face when coming out, particularly on such a public platform. You need that support from somewhere. And it's that I feel like so many times people go, oh, look, they got celebrated for coming out as LGBT plus in some way. That just encourages people because they're like, I'm going to get celebrated too, but not realizing that that is like this amount of experience for this person compared to this amount of homophobic, transphobic, bigoted attacks that they face everywhere else in life. They deserve that little bit of uplift. It's so important to get that. And it doesn't encourage people to be LGBT plus. Just, the one thing that we really need to get straight is that people are born gay. People are born trans. People are born their sexual orientation and their gender identity. Life experiences do not make people LGBT+. Life experiences can make it easier for LGBT+ people to live as themselves, or they can make it harder. And oftentimes, what we're seeing here is Elliot talking about how his experiences made it harder for him. And instead of there being compassion for that difficulty, he's met with,
oh no, it wasn't that it made it harder for you to be yourself, it's that it made you deluded to think that you are trans. It made you think that that would be easier.
I was like, no. Just the fundamental lack of understanding is shocking, and that somebody would still make a video about this.
Of course, is going to function as a momentary high of all highs. You feel as though you've grasped a bit of who you actually are, a bit of yourself. You've also given a massive you to every single kid who bullied you for being masculine in school, to every executive who tried to get in your pants at a dinner when you were 16, to an actor who gave an inebriated speech at you about how you're not actually gay. What you really need to do is process the trauma and the pain that is born out of those events in your life, but instead you try to let identity characteristics do that for you. And while that may work for a while, all of that is still brewing inside. All of that pain, all of that despair is still sitting there, and you're never going to be fully satisfied with yourself because you're seeking the wrong medication.
This very much sounds like, and I don't know, I could have misinterpreted this, but this person very much sounds like they are going down the road of,
you have unresolved trauma, and you are, instead of dealing with that unresolved trauma, you are coming out as LGBT+. But you're never going to be happy because actually you're not really LGBT+, but you need to deal with that trauma.
That's what this sounds like. It doesn't work that way. Trauma doesn't make people gay or trans. A lot of gay and trans people experience trauma because of who they are, but it's the other way around. Like, it doesn't make them their identity.
And you're never going to be fully satisfied with yourself because you're seeking the wrong medication for the illness that you're dealing with.
You're seeking the wrong medication for the illness that you're dealing with. Now, if she is talking about transitioning and receiving gender affirming care instead of something else, the only alternative is conversion therapy. So I'm very curious to see if this is going to go down a conversion therapy discussion route, or if this was just a metaphor.
Then coming out as gay becomes coming out as trans, and this achieves even more for a traumatized person. You get to discard the body that you feel has been exploited your entire life. You get to assume a new identity and run from who you are and all of those past experiences, because Ellen is no longer Ellen. Ellen is a dead name. That person is died. That person is gone.
Again, very deep misunderstanding of the trans experience. As a trans person, when you come out, your pre-transition self, yes, there's a dead name, but it's not you before coming out is dead, gone, buried, goodbye. It's that you are now living as yourself. I want to clarify, I'm not making this video for the person whose video I'm reacting to. I'm not making it for her. That's not who I'm speaking to in this video. I'm breaking down the misinformation that has been spread in this video, and I'm calling it out. I view myself pre-transition as who I am now, but just a version who was not able to live openly as my true self. This is my true self, and me before is not a persona that is dead and gone, and I'm like, no, I'm no longer that person. I am this person. I have always been this person. I was this person, but other people didn't view me that way. I couldn't live openly as this person. Every interpretation she has about trans people has been flipped. And it's like, oh, when you transition, you kill that past self that you didn't like and you're trying to run away from your trauma, so you put on this new facade. It's not that. It's like you're taking it off and you're being yourself. I really think if there was just more hesitation in people's willingness to speak over and about a community they know nothing about, and if there was just a bit more compassion from those people towards the trans community, and not in the sense of, oh, poor you, you're going to regret this, but in the sense of like, no, I recognize that, you know, factually, gender affirming care, the right approach. There is a 1% regret rate for people transitioning. For the vast majority, where it is the right thing for them to do, it improves well-being. Like, it's a no-brainer that the gender affirming care is the correct approach. She's packaged this in a way where it's like, it sounds very calm and like I've got my arguments together and I'm telling you points that are factual, and it is just a lot of gobbledygook where everything has just been spun around and twisted and somebody's just saying how they feel and presenting it as fact.
I am now Elliot. Not to mention the fact that you get to join a new community, you become the poster child for a new movement, just like you did.
A new movement, as in new movement to Elliot, or new movement generally, because there's been trans people forever, and like, it's not exactly a gift to become the poster child of trans rights and trans representation.
And you get sympathy and a group of people that feel as though they understand you on a deeper level when it couldn't be farther from the truth. And most importantly, for Elliot Page, you get this.
I understood my truth. I felt it very strongly, and it was all of these external forces and noises that pushed and pulled and made me sort of lose track of who I was.
He's literally telling you, I knew who I was. I have always been this person that you see now. This has always been me, but it's external forces that pushed that down and told me I couldn't be that. That is literally what he's telling you. I don't think she listened to what he was saying. Clearly paying too much attention to the body language and reading far too much into that.
A rewritten story. A story that told you that you knew who you were all along and society just consistently tried to beat it out of you. And some of that is true. Society did beat this individual down for many different reasons, but not because they're trans, not because they're a girl born into a boy's body.
How do you know that? What knowledge and experience does she have to sit there and say that as if that is fact and what she is saying is the actual truth of the matter? Because one, if you are not Elliot, you cannot say whether he was devoid of happiness and joy in that video. You cannot say if what he is saying is not true. And then if you are not a trans person, how in the hell would you know what it's like to be trans, what it means to be trans, what it feels like to be trans, and what the trans experience actually is? You can try and learn as much as you want to as a cis ally, but there's going to be a limitation to that knowledge. And clearly this person hasn't even attempted to get to the level of knowledge of like baby cis ally. Very far from it. And I'm just wondering why someone who isn't trans would make a video like this. Yeah, just the level of confidence whilst being wrong is quite astounding.
But because Ellen Page happened to be in the right place at the right time to receive this behavior from the wrong people. And this is all just theory, of course. I'm just trying to put puzzle pieces together.
There's no puzzle pieces to put together. Elliot Page is a trans man. What puzzle pieces are you trying to put together? There's like a pinboard of Elliot Page's face in the middle and then just empty strings and a big cross wire of shit. This doesn't add anything. This is just being negative on a person who's just living their life. But these words are harmful. People will watch this video, trust this, not give a shit that she's just said one throwaway sentence of like, but this is all just theory, because there's been so much confidence in the delivery and so much like, this is right, this is what's happened, this is how he's feeling, this is why he's done this. That's what people are going to pay attention to. And people who don't know anything about the trans community, people who know as little as the person making this video, will just buy it and comment and be like, oh my god, yeah, I see it, oh my god, he's so sad, this is absolutely the wrong thing for him to have done, oh, trans people, no, but not actually listen to a trans person.
But I can imagine if Ellen Page wasn't there to receive that abuse, to receive that exploitation, it very well would have been given to somebody else. She just happened to be the person that was there at the time.
What? If Elliot didn't receive abuse and being told that who he was wrong and be bullied, I'm pretty sure, I'm saying this from the experience of a trans person who can relate to some of the experiences that Elliot has specifically spoken about, I'm pretty sure he'd have figured out who he was sooner. And I'm saying that because I know I would have. Maybe he wouldn't have, but for me, I certainly would have found that sooner if society hadn't consistently told me I was wrong for being myself.
This incessant abuse and bullying, she's developed this new identity that is Elliot Page. And unfortunately, what this becomes is a story of somebody who is allowing their abusers to define them.
You'd really need to know somebody on a very personal level, as in be their therapist, be a qualified therapist, and specifically be the therapist to the person you're talking about, to make these kind of assumptions. These are incorrect assumptions about the trans experience and how people are trans, because people are born trans. But when we're talking about individuals, you cannot, like, it's wrong to say this about a group of people, and it's also very wrong to say this about an individual, because you have no idea. The only way that this would be a justifiable video to make is if this person was Elliot Page's personal therapist and he had shared all of this with her and given her permission to make a video about it.
You made fun of me for being masculine, I'll become the boy. You threw me in the boys' bathroom, now I'll go to the boys' bathroom.
The reaches that are being reached. Oh my god. They could span the Grand Canyon.
You tried to put your hand up my skirt. I'm not wearing skirts anymore. You wanted to have sex with
I mean, you don't need to transition to not wear skirts anymore.
me because I came out as gay. Well, now I'm a man. And this is not me attacking Elliot Page by any means, although I'm sure for many it's going to come off that way because
it's full of misgendering and anti-trans rhetoric and pure misunderstanding of the trans community and misinformation about the trans community represented as fact. Or, sorry, your theory, but like that was a throwaway comment in a 14-minute long video where things have been said with a lot of authority and confidence.
the conversations we're having surrounding the transgender identity. I could not feel worse for somebody who has gone through this, so much so that it led to them attempting to change their entire identity. And we can all tell in the video that we just watched that this experiment was not successful.
Honestly, people who don't agree with being trans and trans people are wearing some kind of like goggles when they watch this stuff, because that is not at all the impression from that video. Like, you cannot watch a 30-second clip of somebody and then call their transition and a very deeply personal journey to them an experiment when you don't know them personally, you don't know anything about the trans experience generally either, and make such broad sweeping statements. You saw 30 seconds of the dude. A 30-second clip where he smiled multiple times. A 30-second clip where he was talking about something quite serious and a memory that is not going to be the happiest, and something that as a trans person myself, I can absolutely see where the emotions in that video were coming from, or I can make an assumption about where they could have been coming from based on my own life experience as someone with the same identity as Elliot.
There is no happiness there. There is no joy. There is no embracing of one's inner self actually happening here. And for all the talk of truth and embracing
She definitely didn't listen to the video.
oneself and knowing who you truly are, I feel like it couldn't be farther from the truth. And it's so devastating to watch somebody say those words, but to know that what's coming out of their mouth isn't necessarily true.
How do you know? I'm so baffled by this person's comments. I'm speechless at the level of confidence they have in their assumptions about somebody they don't know. Literally sat there going, I know this from this 30-second clip. I know. How? I don't know. I'm saying that I can draw parallels to my own experience as a trans man and talk about that and talk about ways in which I can relate to some of the things Elliot has shared. I can say from my perspective as a trans person, I can understand some of the emotions he seems to be displaying. I can also say that I saw him smile several times and also look serious, but I don't know how he was feeling. Nobody except him knows how he was feeling. Away from even being trans or any kind of bigotry going on or misconceptions going on, you cannot watch a 30-second clip of anybody else and say, I know how they are feeling, or I know what they've done right now is wrong. Like, unless they're stood there going,
I did something very wrong.
you don't, like, trans things aside, that is just wrong on all levels of just communication and understanding other people.
I don't think Ellen Page or Elliot Page, whatever we want to say, has had the time.
Elliot Page. His name is Elliot Page. There you go.
To truly process what has happened to them.
And that's another thing, like, you don't know what processing Elliot Page has done. You don't know what therapy, you don't know what journey he's been on. You have seen a snippet. Like, what we see of famous people from the outside perspective is such a tiny, tiny bit. These people are living 24 hours, 7-day week lives, and we see like 10-minute, 30-second little clips of it. We see them acting in a movie, we see them giving an interview for a minute. Like, you don't know anything about this person. The most respectful thing to do is to listen to what they're saying and trust that they know themselves better than you know them, because they definitely do.
I can only imagine what that looks like. And again, I would not wish that on my worst enemy.
Also, like, I hate the pity angle here. Trans people do not want the pity of people like this.
And it seems as though, as a society, we can all understand this when it's packaged the right way. When you see a child star like Amanda Bynes or Demi Lovato or Drew Barrymore go on this trajectory towards a crash out due to all the abuse and the exploitation that they faced as a kid and then leading into their adulthood, we all seem to understand what went wrong. But when you switch out, I don't know, drug addiction and DUIs and this party lifestyle for literally cutting off your breast, changing your anatomy.
The escalation of this video is growing greatly. So now she's comparing child stars who, as they've gotten older, have gone off the rail in terms of drugs and breaking the law and alcohol and partying to being trans. That's pretty abhorrent. Very wrong.
Undergoing hormone replacement therapy, changing your voice, changing everything about the physical nature of your body.
Transitioning does, yes. Hormones are very powerful things, and the specialist doctors that trans people go and speak to, and the wait lists that trans people have to be on, and the hoops that trans people have to go through, deal with this. You're not a medical professional treating trans people, are you? You don't specialize in a gender identity clinic. So where are you coming from with this? Have you transitioned yourself? No. So what authority, what knowledge basis are you coming at this from? A transphobic rabbit hole on Twitter or on YouTube and other people who make videos like this? This is just parroting the misinformation there is out there that transphobes are spewing about trans people at the moment.
We seem to lack understanding. That's one guiding themselves towards who they truly are. When instead of heroin and cocaine, it's a testosterone shot, we all...
I've been making videos for so long, I've reacted to a lot of transphobes, and I have never seen somebody compare testosterone to heroin. Is this video some kind of parody and satire? Are they going to go at the end, it was a joke, I was trying to make the most wildly inaccurate, rude, insensitive, baseless transphobic video for you all, and that was my attempt. How did I do?
Suddenly become blind. All this to say, I hope that Elliot Page or Ellen Page, I'm sure you guys are going to go off in the comments about the pronouns and the name use. I don't care.
I think that sums it up. I don't care. I don't care what you're going to say in the comments about what I've just said in this video. That is very much like, I am just going to carry on with my level of understanding I have right now, and I have no interest in growing from that or recognizing if I've caused any hurt to people. Yeah, that I'm good.
I hope this individual gets to experience the happiness that they are so evidently longing for.
I feel like Elliot could have gone on an interview and had the most contagious, joyful fit of the giggles, and this person would still be sat there going, oh, look how sad he is. Oh, terrible. I hope he finds joy one day.
But on the way there, if they could please stop encouraging other young kids who feel the same to go down this path, I would deeply appreciate that.
It's none of your business. You're not one of those kids. You're not a trans person. What is it for you to appreciate? You would deeply appreciate if a trans person stopped being visibly trans and sharing about their experiences, because that's what he's doing. That sounds very shit.
I have the utmost sympathy for everything that Ellen Page has gone through that led her to become Elliot Page, but to stand as Elliot Page and encourage other young people, young children, to do the same is harmful.
No, we don't all know it is, because the existence of trans adults proves that trans kids are real and valid and exist. And I would greatly encourage people to go and read about what the process is like for transitioning for children, the age restrictions on certain access to hormones. Listen to what trans people are actually saying when they speak about it. They're not stood there going, hey, kids, if you're feeling a bit sad, if you're bullied, be trans. It solves all your problems. Because she's acting like that's what Elliot's been saying, when in fact he's just been asked about his personal experience. He's offering words of encouragement to people who are trans. He's not there making people trans. And the representation offered is so crucial, is so important, and it's been so lacking for so long for trans people, particularly trans youth, to be able to see a future for themselves. There is a shockingly low number of public older trans people. So many trans people don't realize until much later that they can actually grow old, that they actually have a life to live. And I cannot put into words how harmful and horrible this video and these opinions are. You can disagree with something, you cannot accept trans people, you cannot understand it, you cannot agree with it. That's all fine. But what is really shitty is making content like this that gets shared on a very large platform and influences other people to have this approach. This creates a cycle of misinformation being spread about a community. And it's not just this person. I'm not singling this person out in what I'm saying right now. People share misinformation and put a target on the back of a marginalized community that increases the discrimination they receive, decreases the rights they receive, increases the bullying, and it just goes round in this cycle until something breaks it. And we are stuck in this horrible negative cycle for trans people right now that we don't deserve to be in. Trans people are just out here living our lives. We're not trying to force anybody else to be trans. We're not trying to force kids to transition. It's impossible. If people are not trans, they are not trans. But go Go look at the research at the regret rate and the rate of detransition. And actually the most likely reason for people to detransition is because they lack support and safety in their environment to actually be trans and be themselves. And very many of them go on to transition later when they are in a safer situation. I know that this video is not going to make any difference to this person's opinion, but I hope that anybody who maybe watched this one first or might have come across this video or wasn't sure what to think, I think a really big question to ask if you're not sure about where to turn to learn more about trans things. If you were wanting to learn about any other marginalized community, would you watch a video from a straight person telling you what they think it's like to be gay, what they think the experiences of a gay person is like, or why they think that person is gay? You wouldn't. Currently, right now, it just seems so acceptable for people to base their information and their knowledge and their viewpoint of trans people based on videos made by cis people who, when you know anything about what it's like to be trans, are very, very misguided in the information they're sharing. And I just wish people would take a moment and listen to trans people. Nobody knows what Elliot Page's experiences are. Nobody knows what he was actually feeling when he made that video, except for Elliot. He is a grown man who is allowed to share about his experiences of being trans. And he is the only one that knows the truth of those experiences. And so we should be trusting him when he is talking about those experiences. I just don't understand how you can watch a 30-second clip of somebody else, maybe a few other small clips of somebody else, never speak to them personally, not be a qualified therapist in the realm of being trans and gender identity, and make a video like the one this person's made.
To do the same is harmful, and we all know it is. So when you're watching this video and you can see the pain and the despair that is so clearly still living in this individual, maybe they don't have the antidote to your pain and despair.
1, where is the pain and despair? 2, even if there were pain and despair that Elliot were expressing, how would you know what that was to do with? There's so many things that go on in people's lives that can impact their mood other than them being trans. 99% of the time that I feel sad or I'm having a difficult time or I'm struggling with something, it has nothing to do with me being trans. You cannot just take a small clip of a trans person where I don't even think he looked that sad, to be honest, where they're being a bit more serious and be like,
total despair, and it must be to do with the trans thing.
maybe he wasn't feeling well. I don't know. Not that I even agree with her interpretation of him in that video, but if you really genuinely think, oh, he looks a bit sad there, why does that have to have anything to do with him being trans? Why does everything lead back to, oh, it's because he's trans?
And I cannot wait for the day that they do, but it is not today. And those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know how you feel about this.
I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, but if you are gonna call me out about pronoun and name usage, I don't care. It gives very much like, oh, if you comment that and I agree with you, great. But if you don't agree with me, I don't care.
As always, if you disagree with anything said in this video, duke it out, but do so respectfully. We encourage healthy debate on this channel.
Healthy debate. What I would like to point out is being able to speak in a way that is calm and not using any kind of like passionate tone or not swearing or not using any derogatory language does not automatically make something respectful or healthy debate. Being trans and trans people are not up for debate. We are not having a debate over the validity of trans people. And I think it's especially bizarre and wrong to pick like some random trans celebrity that you clearly don't know on a personal level and know very, very little about and be like,
Let's have a little debate. Let me tell you what I know they're feeling.
So respect is more than just being calm in a video. Being respectful to a trans person would be gendering them correctly, would be not using their dead name very, very frequently, would be not making wild sweeping assumptions over what they're feeling in specific moments, would not be trying to imply that they are maliciously encouraging children to go through some kind of medical transition, which isn't even accessible to children, by the way. Respect would be to do more research before you make a video on a topic that you clearly know nothing about, and to not speak with such authority on something you clearly know nothing about. And respect is not to assume that you know exactly why somebody is the way they are, why they are who they are, and how they're feeling in any given moment. And it's also not to pity somebody and hope for the day that they realize that they were wrong, because that's awful. Sharing an opinion that is bashing down on a marginalized community isn't just sharing an opinion, it's causing harm. And when you're causing harm, either through ignorance or with malicious intent, it's not respectful to that community or that person. This was not a respectful video to the trans community. It was certainly not a respectful video towards Elliot Page. And I have no idea if this person is aware that it's not respectful or not, or if they are coming just purely from a place of not understanding and having a deep lack of knowledge, or if they're coming from a malicious place. I have no idea where they're coming from because I don't know them. I can just call out specifically what they've said in terms of facts and what we can see and what we can actually make claims about. This whole video was just very wrong. I do want to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure there's several things. As when I react to these, there's always like more I can say, but I just feel like I'm pausing videos so frequently. So if there is anything I missed and you want to add to it, then please go comment down below. Let's show a little bit of love for Elliot Page. Let's go for, what should we comment? Let's do like a little T-Rex, because dinosaurs are cool, transphobia is not. Let's comment a little T-Rex to show some support for Elliot. And yeah, think about liking and subscribing if you want to, but no pressure. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.